Two Mercedes for Urano stacked up behind. This is where it is going to be important that we have safety cars.
Yeah.
And they're going to get triggered in sensible ways. We're not just throwing safety cars in there for the sake of throwing safety cars out. You're not allowed to take the automatic tow that iRacing offers you back to the lane. You have to request the tow from the race control, and if the race director elects that you're in an unsafe place to get said tow, we will get a caution. And given what we've already seen so far, you'd bet more likely than not then we're going to get one. Here's the run into the chicane, Lewis.
Yeah, how was this not a safety car after all this? I mean, just the side-by-side, you can see their BS turn, a little bit of air between them. Same as really, to be honest, what was dealt to the Apex Racing Team car. Obviously managed to get back going again, thankfully. I was expecting to be a much, much larger crash, to be honest. Obviously rejoining and having everyone go round them. But it is what it is. Like you say, when you're 2x2, all the way through the chicane, it's dicey. If you're in the 4th, 5th car in that train, it's really hard to pick out your turning point, your braking point, where you're actually getting back on the power, as we're seeing even more of it.
Our poor race control guys have already got about 5 different things reported to them, as now we've got side-by-side and maybe swarming the Core Sim Racing Honda. They'll just about...
It's got a couple of the Urano Esports cars directly behind, the Mercedes AMG Urano and the Urano Esports Data Group cars right on the rear end of that BS turn, and getting past Arnage on the exit of, like you say, it looks like it's a 90-degree right-hander. It's slightly more than that. It's slightly off camber, and it is the most awkward corner I think I've ever come across. I've never done it right.
It's so painful, and every time you do it, you take it a different way. Swap for the lead of Touring Car, by the way, amidst all the sea of GTD craziness, as now R8G back to the front. Side by side into the chicane. The outside becomes the inside. Urano squeezes through on the BMW, and now the 91 will try and follow.
Yeah, Lexi Nessov there coming through. Like you said, Laubish looking for his opportunity, almost pushing his teammate up towards the final corner. Bit risky here. It's still totally flat. You can take quite a tight line through there and bounce over the curbs. It's not too bad, but BS Turner's still trying to do something. Rainer Talva, I mean, he's driven the BMW M4 an awful lot, and he's really putting on a show here.
Up they go into 3, and now squeezed wide. He'll murder some cones, and there will go the 91. Might be a slowdown penalty, and going past goes the Williams Esports Razor car as well, as Carl Janssen needed no second invitation there. And it shows the treachery of continuing to fight side by side, and why it's also important to have teammates for company as well. Let's bring Ewan O'Leary in for the very first time with about 10 minutes of this race done, and you were listening to some of the radio for the Apex Racing Team after their incident down at the chicane.
Yeah, they don't really seem to be blaming anyone for that particular incident that you just saw, where they ended up in the gravel. Jamie Fluke just telling his teammate Johan Hart just to get his head down and get on with it, really, after that particular spin. Also just was in the Urano team chat while that was all going on. They're obviously very pleased with that double overtake, of course, but I chuckled to myself just a moment ago. Nicholas Laubitz just said the words, "This is the craziest race I've ever been involved in."
I'm loving it as well, and Lewis, you and me have been part of plenty of crazy races, but I tend to agree that so far this has been the craziest one. It is Sanchez that now extends the margin at the front to almost 6 full seconds. We check in the battle of 2 Porsches. It's hardpoint by Delta Sport in the 99 versus MSI Esports, as in that car Salva Talons tries to attack the back of the 14-year-old Alessandro Di Tullio.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've said about young talent and stuff, but Tulio being on the younger aspect. Let's take a look at what happened into T1. Couldn't speak English there for a second, but never mind. Number 71 just getting tagged, already breaking some of those rules straight away, and very, very unfortunate. But this is the problem when you... So Alejandro Sanchez, right, is in a beautiful position right now, because every time he comes up to the back of a touring car, he can navigate it as he sees fit. He doesn't have pressure on his rear end. He can afford to almost cost himself a second to gain it back later on. No worries, not pressure. It is what's allowing him to even clear out even further. 5.8 seconds now. This race has only been going on for 13 minutes. I know Alejandro Sanchez is good, but yeah, like, this is the joy of like being able to do it by yourself. Meanwhile, when you look back to Alexei Nessov, now sure, he's got his teammate in Laubish directly behind, but they've had to fight really hard with the BS Turner car of Talva, with the Williams Esports Razor car of Janssen. And to be fair, Ascari Rene's also joined into it. As we look back towards that train, you can also see Gianni Vecchio closing in on all of
Delta Sport, who started down in 24th in GTD, are up to 12th position so far. Pearson's in the GTD class as well. They're up 7 spots. In a slightly smaller TCR field, we haven't seen so many big movers, but Nicole Foggy, after not punching in a qualifying time, has actually worked his way back up into the top 10. We haven't really talked about points, Lewis. We haven't really talked about championship. very crowded things, lots of things to talk about at the start of this season, of course. $25,000 on the line across of the two classes. Our champion, of course, will walk away with the lion's share in both of them. But you score points not just in the qualifying session and in the race sessions as well. It's a point system that anyone who has watched IMSA before will be very familiar with.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of one of those things that we like to imitate the whole shebang, basically everything. It's 350 points for race, which sounds like a crazy large number, but obviously then it's 320, 300, 280 and stuff. The points differential between the top two is 30 points, so it's a fairly large bonus. It's the largest gap on them as you would expect. That's a good point scoring system, not pointing things at anyone. Just a couple of friends as well that will definitely not have an idea. I think Ewan O'Leary are probably rolling his eyes right now. But yeah, 350 to 320, then 300, and basically just so on 20 down to outside of the top 10, and then it moves down in tens apiece. But there are points for everyone. There are points for, if you finish the race, you get to some point, and that can be important later on. It's only a 4-round championship. Whilst you'd say you need to nail every single round, I would say absolutely not. Just do as good as you can, because you might end up contending for the championship in the final round. No one's going to have a perfect season.
Let's bring back in Ewan O'Leary down on pit lane as we still continue to work past TCR traffic. That is the Honda Racing official entry with Carl Whitmer and Jacob Abel behind the wheel. But Ewan, you've been hearing some chatter within the Williams Esports Razor camp about how drivers in front are expected to battle one another.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I just heard Daniel Lafuente and Carl Janssen conversing a little bit about the battle that they're about to, that Rainer Talvar is about to have with Nicholas Laumisch over the next few laps. It could get a little bit interesting there. We'll see what happens. But more importantly, in the Williams camp, we're hearing there is some damage to the number 55, reported damage after their contact on the side of the car. Looking slightly understeered for the moment, but they're not entirely sure how much it's affecting them.
Love it. Thank you, Ewan. Ewan assisted by Lorenzo Bonder down on pit lane. Our version, basically, of Shea Adams. Working very hard and having to run around a lot, I can tell you that. We watch a battle in the touring car category. Martin van Lozenoord is starting to break away. 1.2 seconds clear of Kieran Harrison, who won the Hyundai NE Global Festival earlier this year, before then moving teams from Core Sim Racing, along with Corentin Gunes, to Sim RC, who he now shares a car with in that 176. I thought the 176 was going to be the favorite. Lewis, a lot of the teams were complaining that the Honda was going to be nowhere near the Hyundai in terms of speed, but Van Lozenoord, R8G, it's not a surprise to see them at the front, if we're being honest. Yeah,
I mean, I've driven the Hyundai around here, and I mean, it is hooked up beautifully. Martin van Lozenoord, I mean, let's be honest, this is as close to an open wheeler as you can get, right? And Martin van Lozenoord's good at open wheelers. I mean, I don't know how a driver that's so good at open wheel competition is so good in a touring car. I mean, it's totally different. And he is just, I mean, obviously, yeah, if you're a good driver in anything, you're going to be a good driver in anything, basically. But Van Lozenoord's just absolutely on it right now. Like I say, Kieran Harrison directly behind. And I have raced with Kieran Harrison in the touring cars around Road Atlanta, actually. And by raced with, I mean I was on the same grid at different bars. I was fifth. He was like 25 seconds down the road in 15 minutes. But we're not talking about that. We'll not talk about that at all. So incredible talent.
What we should talk about is the battle of the 5-breathing McLarens. It's great. Yes, it's a bit old in the tooth, but this McLaren MP4-12C is magnificent.
Hour 55 is the maximum for a driver. It's just about which way round you do it. Do you kind of run the strategy backwards, do an hour on this stint, then do 40 minutes with potentially your lead driver, and then do the final stint of an hour with your second driver from that point? Or do you, and this is kind of the way that I would do it, which I know a lot of teams kind of haven't, it's almost a bit controversial, a bit risky, which is put your second driver in now. Put your second driver in to start the race. They do an hour, and then bang on the hour mark, or as far as you can get to, you switch out to your main driver, to your primary driver, and then do an hour 40. It's
very much like it is in the real world, right, Lewis, where you'll often in Pro-Am classes, like our GTD class, so where there's Sports Car Championship, yes, this is the elite of sim racing, but the reality is there's always one driver that's faster.
Yeah, like you say, you kind of almost want to get their stint out of the way a little bit and then focus on the meaty part of the race. Because what you don't want to do is, say for example, you do it the other way around. You have, like, for example, Alejandro Sanchez, who's in for an hour now and then is in for 40 minutes after this to do that stuff. But then what if there's a safety car with 50 minutes to go? You kind of cost yourself on that. Either way, we'll discuss this ad nauseum, I'm sure. Johan Haaf, though, making up a spot, coming back up the order just ever so slightly.
Yeah, he's on the fight back around the outside. Not really fought